talk about the activity section, which is my favorite section. That's why they asked me to do it, because I love it. And we're also going to talk about the honors and awards section. Not my favorite section, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not my favorite. So I hope that you will drop questions into the chat or on Facebook. And I have Lisa in the background, and she will let me know if there are questions that I can answer for you. I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about the activity section first, and then I will answer questions. And you can ask me about anything, honestly. I'll answer those after I cover the activity section. So we're going to start with, I have a little jerry-rigged activity section. Hopefully everybody can see that okay. So this is a screenshot of the Common App activity section, and you can see this main tab is in the middle. It's under the Common App main tab. Once you get through profile, family, education, and testing, you get to this activity section. And this is where students can list basically how they've been spending their time in high school. Couple of basics. You want to cover things that you've done in high school. So unfortunately, I had someone ask me the other day, her daughter got the Gold Scout or Girl Scout Gold Award when she was in 8th grade. And that it doesn't go here because 8th grade, not high school. So this is going to cover anything from the summer after 8th grade all the way through senior year of high school. And you'll see it covers a wide array of things: arts and music, clubs, community engagement. I want to highlight this one, family responsibilities. A lot of students have some kind of family obligation, including taking care of elderly or disabled grandparents, or even a disabled parent, or helping with younger siblings. My children, definitely, my older sons were, we called them family Uber drivers. They had to pick up their younger brother and sister and chauffeur them a lot during the work week because their father and I both have more than full-time jobs. So that's anything that your child spends time doing counts. And I think that a lot of kids discount that and think it's not going to count, things like that. Just remember, things like that do matter. I also have a lot of parents who are surprised to know that paid jobs go in this section. Paid job is a great activity, and it absolutely goes in this section. So I think that sometimes we discount things that we get paid for, and that is not the case in college admissions. So for sure, paid work can go in here. Volunteer work also goes in here, and internships, paid or unpaid. I like to have students mark down whether they're paid or unpaid when they list the internship. But if they get an internship, that for sure goes in here too. The other thing is it lists other experiences that have been meaningful to you. And, you know, I get so many questions every year. Well, does this count? Does this count? Would this count? A lot of parents will say, well, I didn't think that would count because it didn't happen at school. Things do not have to happen at school to be meaningful to a student or to matter. And I think that the real question you need to be asking yourself in this activity section is, what has mattered to the student in high school? This is so funny because as I'm starting the session, they are literally cleaning right outside my office, which they haven't been doing. So if you hear it, I'm sorry. So just for example, going back to things that are meaningful to the student, sometimes I have students who are introverts, students who, you know, maybe are not physically able to be active or just are not interested in being physically active, so they don't play a sport. And some students for whom things like reading is a really big part of their life. And if what I tell the student is, if something like reading is something that you do on a daily or almost daily basis, and it's actually a really big part of your life, like absolutely it should go in the activity section. It's not going to be an activity that, you know, is showing a ton of community engagement maybe, but it's definitely still an activity. And if you're going to list it, just make sure that you note in your description, like why it's meaningful to you. And to that end, I have kids list like their favorite genres, their favorite authors, if they've gone to book signings or book festivals or book clubs, and if they share any of their reading activities with other people, for sure, that's awesome. But my point is that it doesn't have to be Key Club, or it doesn't have to be, Mu Alpha Theta for it to count on your activities list. So I've had students before for whom bird watching or birding is their number one activity. And that's absolutely legit. So that's the basics of the activities, like just thinking about the categories of activities. Basically, if you can answer the question, yes, it matters to them, and yes, they've spent time and energy doing it in high school, then it might belong on the activities section. It will ask you if you have activities you wish to report. You get up to 10 slots. And this is what a slot looks like. So you can see in this example, someone has already chosen art as the activity type. There's a drop-down menu that has different categories. I wouldn't stress out too much about what category you choose. Just use common sense and use the category that you think. And then the second slot is position or leadership description, then organization name, and then a description of the activity. So here's why it's my favorite section on the Common App. I think that this section could be done a couple of ways. But the first way is that you can do it very straightforwardly and very dryly, and it can read like a resume. And there's nothing wrong with that, except that, it's perhaps not utilizing it to its fullest potential. And in this, if you're doing it that way, then you would just list your role here, list the organization name if you have one. You'll see it doesn't have a red asterisk. And on the Common App, if there's no red asterisk, that means it's not actually required for you to put an answer there. So, with reading, if you were reading, there wouldn't be an organization name. Or if you were birding, there probably wouldn't be an organization name. But if you're in Key Club, that's going to be your high school Key Club chapter, right? And then there's a description. Notice that the description is a maximum of 150 characters, not words, characters. That means like letters and punctuation. So it's very, very short, and you have to be really good at fitting as much information in as possible in that tiny little description. So if you're going to be very straightforward about it, totally fine. And in some instances, that's the only way to fill out an activity description, because maybe if it's a sport where you have stats that you need to list, or there's something with a lot of particular numbers or highlights that you need to get in there, absolutely. But here's the thing. If you are working at an ice cream store, and ice cream shop, I guess we call it. Store sounds weird. You pick work, in parentheses, paid, for your activity type. Then your position and your organization name. Obviously, the organization name is going to be the name of the ice cream shop. What's your position? It can be, store employee, or cash register, just employee. Like, you can go very straightforward. You can also put something like store employee / scooper extraordinaire, or best ice cream flavor suggester in town. And I think that here's the thing, like, everyone knows what goes on at an ice cream shop. You don't have to describe that to a college admissions professional. Like, they read these all day long, and a lot of kids work in ice cream shops, and we all know what happens in an ice cream shop. But unless you have a very specific role in the ice cream shop, if you are just someone who works behind the counter, helps scoop ice cream, you absolutely can put that as your role. And I think that the kids kind of think they're supposed to put like interacts with customers, mops the floor, rings up customers. But you can be more creative than that in your description or in your position leadership description, and just say things like, developed ability to suggest flavors that people love, person who picks or like best playlist picker. I know one of my students right now says he's like, I'm really good at picking the background music for the store. He actually works in an ice cream shop right now. And he's like, Taylor Swift has all the clean mixes. So we listen to Taylor Swift all day, which I think is awesome and genius. But my point is you can be very creative. And in the description of the activity, you can be very straightforward and say like mop floors, interact with customers, clean ice cream bins, make product, or you can say things like, you know, run the shop, close at the end of the day, and make sure every customer walks out happy, or create positive atmosphere because that's what an ice cream shop should have. Like you can definitely be more creative and more personable if you want to. And it might catch their eye when they're reading these and they can kind of get a taste of your personality. Here's the caveat to that. Do not try to be cute or clever if you are not, in fact, a cute or clever person in real life, because you don't want it to be too forced. And also realize that you can't show personality in every description. They're definitely cleaning right outside of my office right now. You can't do it in every description. You can't do it for every activity. But my point is, when you can, show some personality, because I think that they read these all day long. They see the same things over and over again. And I know for a fact, because a couple of my friends are readers, that when there is personality in these descriptions and in these activity sections, it stands out. Absolutely. And they're like, this is so awesome. So think about it. A couple of other examples. I've had students who play on sports teams, and they play because they love the sport. They don't play necessarily because they're the star. And, you know, sometimes for their leadership description, we're like bench warmer in chief, but also team, like self-designated team hype man, or, you know, I might not be the top player on the team, but I show up for practice on time. I work hard every day and I give it 100% and I love my team. That is a totally fine description. If you're not somebody who has like huge stats to throw up, or you haven't, you know, been the lead scorer on the team. If you are the lead scorer on the team, that is absolutely what you should include. I'm just saying, like, there are a lot of people on teams and sometimes you're not the lead scorer, and it's okay. The other thing I want to say about that is if you are putting in sports teams, first of all, if you play for your high school and you play for a club team, you can separate those out. There's a category for JV varsity and there's a category for club, and you can definitely separate those out. If you have trouble fitting all your activities into 10 and you need to put them together, you can also do that. You just have to get creative. And the other thing is that if you are writing about a sport, just try not to explain to them that you attend practices and you go to tournaments, because they know, like, that's like the biggest Captain Obvious description, you know. The other one is when you say you're in student government and you say you run meetings and attend meetings, like, we know. So think about other things. I usually have an example when I am allowed to open the Common App because it is not shut down, where I have student government and I show, I think that a lot of times student government descriptions can look exactly the same, like planned homecoming, planned prom, raise school spirit, that kind of thing. Think about what your individual role and impact has been on that organization. So for example, I know this will shock all of you. I was student body president in high school. And so in my Common App, had I filled out a Common App, because back then, of course, it was the dark ages before the internet, and we actually wrote things out on a piece of paper and sent it in the mail from the post office. But I digress. If I was filling it out, I would have put my high school student government here. I would have put student body president, and in parentheses, I would have put 12th because I was only student body president for 12th grade, and that was my top leadership position. And then in the description, I would have put created and executed the school's first homecoming parade because I did that. And I started a new tradition. So I didn't include things like ran meetings, planned homecoming, planned prom, but I would say created and executed school's first homecoming parade. And then if I was running student government now, I probably would also initiate a mental health awareness campaign, that kind of thing. Very specific things that I would have made an impact with. Can't always do that, but I'm just saying, like, when you are thinking about what to put in that description, think about specifics and impact, because that's so much more interesting and also meaningful than just a general description, especially of what the activity is. If the activity is something very specific to your school that is only at your school, then you might want to describe what that activity is a little bit. You can do it up here in the organization name if you can, where you have 100 characters so that you're not using up all of your 150 description characters on that. But for the most part, they're going to know what the activity is that you're talking about. FBLA, DECA, HOSA, Mu Alpha Theta, Tri-M, like all of these things are very, very common. Kids are in it. So I think that, you know, sometimes the kids think that that's only at their school and they need to explain what that is. You don't need to explain what that is. They know. You'll probably know if it's something very specific to your school. Okay, so position leadership description. If you have had more than one role, like say I was student body president in 12th grade, I put student body president 12th, comma. If I had been a different role, a different year, I could put senior class or junior class vice president 11th, and then fit as many of those as I can into the 50 characters up here. The organization name, do not spell out the name of your high school. It gets very tedious to read the name of your high school over and over again. But for instance, my school that I work at is LMP. I could put LMP student government, LMP varsity girls soccer. I've been seeing this year kids leaving off the name of their high school, like even the initials. And I do encourage them to put the name of their high school in front of the chapter of the organization, if that's where it is, because otherwise I'm like, well, is that a soccer team at your school, or is it a soccer team in the community? Or is that an organization that's at your school, or is it an organization that you're in outside of your school in the community? I like to see that it is a school chapter, but you don't need to spell out the name of the school. I also see parents who worry a lot about like how formal this should be. It does not need to be super formal. It's okay to abbreviate the name of the high school in front, and you can use resume speak in the description. So it does not need to be full sentences. It can be, I really encourage the kids to use action verbs like organized, hosted, coordinated. Coordinated takes up a lot of characters though. So hosted and they're shorter. So I like action verbs and try to vary your verbs, but you can use resume speak. You don't have to use complete sentences. I also have the kids use the ampersand for the word and to cut down on characters when we're trying to fit in a lot of stuff. Trying to think if I've told you everything that I would tell you about that. Yeah. So if you have stats, you can put them here. If you have an award, you can put them here. If it's a team award, that is where I go back and forth, because the kids will want to say, well, I was, you know, we won states. Winning states is great if you're on the state winning soccer team, and you should work that in there. But just remember, like, I want to know what your role and your impact was on that state award winning team, not so much like about the team, if that makes sense. Okay. This is where the really, really tedious part of this section is. Participation grade levels is not tedious. You should know that. One thing I want to note, I've had a lot of questions this year. I've had some interesting questions I've never had before this year. And one thing that the kids keep asking me is, Do I put down every year that I participated, or do I put down every year that I was that leadership role? And it's participation in the activity in general that you're marking. So if you're in student government all 4 years, but you're only president or an officer your 12th grade year, you still mark all 4 years, not just 12th grade. You would mark all of them. Another thing, postgraduate, you do not mark that unless you have graduated from high school and you are in a PG year, a postgraduate year. A lot of boarding schools offer those, some prep schools do. The kids have been checking it off, thinking that it means that they plan to do it after high school. That is not what that means. It means that you have graduated high school and you're in another year of school. So unless you are taking a PG year at a school, you are not checking that box off. This part is the part that kids spend, if you ask me, way too much time thinking about. Timing of participation during the school year would be only during the school year. A lot of like JV and varsity sports that don't start before the school year and after the school year. During school break is like only during the summer. So a summer camp or a summer program, something like that. All year would be something like babysitting that you do all year round, or a job that the kids do all year round. Don't stress too much. Like if you're like, well, I do it during the school year, but sometimes I do it on a break too. And it's okay. You can check off both boxes. It's all right. Like there's not going to be an audit. Probably should be an audit, but there's not going to be an audit. And, you know, we answer these questions in good faith. It's okay. These questions, the kids also torture themselves over. Please don't torture yourself. I tell the kids, the goal is when we are done with this application and you look at it, it should semi-accurately reflect approximately how you spend your time in a year. So we don't need to like be splitting hairs over the hours in a week and the weeks in a year. These are supposed to be estimates. As long as you don't blow it up on every single one and act like you spend, 75 hours a week doing everything in the world every week of the year, it's going to be okay. Just be reasonable, be fair to yourselves, be reasonable. I usually tackle this by starting with the weeks spent per year. So if it's a sport, you know approximately how many weeks are in your season. You can kind of count up the weeks in your season. If it's a job, maybe you started now, but you're intending to do it going forward, just make an estimate for how many weeks in a year you're going to work. It's okay. And if it's something like theater, like just think about like school theater, especially think about how many weeks there are in a school year. If there are 52 weeks in a year, I always think like, well, there's 9 weeks in a quarter. There's 4 quarters. So a school year is like what? But somewhere between 36 and 40 weeks. Think about how many weeks of the school year you're doing this activity. And then after we come up with the weeks, then we think about hours per week. And as everyone knows, if you're a theater kid, there are weeks of the year that you don't do much at all. And there are weeks of the year when you basically live at the school. So we're not going to put down the nothing at all. And we're not putting down the I live at the school hours. We're going to do somewhere in between, like some kind of fair average for that. Same with sports. Sometimes you're at a meet and it's all day long, and sometimes you don't have a meet and you're not there as much. You just go to practice. Yeah, you just give it an average. One thing you need to note is that for things that have classes at school, like band, theater, leadership, journalism class, you don't count the hours you spend in a school classroom. If you're getting a grade for it, if it's going to be on your transcript, if you're in a classroom, those hours don't count. They're looking for hours that you spend outside of the classroom. So factor that in. Also, when you're talking about summer camp, and maybe you're a CIT or a counselor, the kids are like, well, I'm there 24 hours a day for this many weeks, but we're not going to count the hours that we spend sleeping because it just gets to be kind of ridiculous. So I realize I've had kids who are counselors. I know that they're still on duty when they're sleeping, but it's just is ridiculous. So we're not going to do it. So just count like the hours during the day that you're like actively out and about with the children at summer camp. Okay. We can also include summer programs here. What I tell the kids is if you went to a program at a college and you didn't get a transcript, or you're not taking the credit that you got from it, they're not giving you credit, or you're not taking the credit, you can put it here as a summer activity and just explain like what you learned, what the class was you took, skills you learned, that kind of thing in the description. Hopefully that's, yeah. And then they have this question, are you going to participate in a similar activity in college? And when I tell you that the kids torture themselves over this, like for reals, just remember this falls into the part of the Common App where the colleges are not asking these specific questions. The Common App just has decided this is something to ask. The colleges don't necessarily even care how you answer this. We don't expect 17-year-olds to know what they're going to do for the next 4 years. But I always say a similar activity. If it's a volunteer activity, like volunteer work, if you plan on doing any kind of volunteer work, that's a similar activity. If it's a sport and you're not going to be recruited, but you are interested in doing intramurals or club sports, that's a similar activity. If it's a club at school and you are interested, like you did student government, you're interested in doing some kind of leadership at college, sure. If you sing and you're thinking about like going into an a cappella group or joining the choir, that's a similar activity in college. So it's, as the children would say, it is not that deep, and don't let it be something that you spend a lot of time thinking about how it's going to look, because it's okay to say no. It's also okay to say yes and then actually not do it. Like, it's okay. I know that for me, I was editor of the paper in high school and wrote for a local newspaper in high school. And when I got to college, I was like, no, I don't want to belong to the newspaper, because I just did that for 4 years and worked my tail off and I need a rest. And it took my RA a semester to convince me to join the school newspaper. And I did eventually write for the newspaper, but I never did it in the same way that I did in high school. I did not want to be editor in chief. And that just, I mean, people change their minds and people do things differently, and that's totally fine. One thing I want to note is that once you have entered more than one activity, there will be a little arrow that shows up right here in the right-hand corner. You can move the activities around in the list and you can change their order. You want the order of the activities to be like, activity number 1 should be the most meaningful, most important activity to you. And then they go down from there. It should also be recent, like something that you still do. And so activity number 1, 2, 3 should be very important to you. By the time we get to the bottom of the list, we're looking at things that you're less involved in as a leader, or there are things that are, less of a priority for you, or you did them in 9th and 10th grade and you don't do them anymore. So that's kind of how the list should read. And the kids will say to me, well, I should put number 1 on the list. I should make this number 1 because this is what's going to look the best, or this is what colleges want to see. And I say, no, I want to know what you care about. Like, what do you care about? What means the most to you? Colleges don't want to see anything. They want to know what you care about and who you are. And I'm going to use a very timely example because I love it and I thought of it today. I hope that all of you have seen the wonderfully nerdy male gymnast, Stephen, and I cannot pronounce his last name, with the glasses, who's an engineer from Worcester, Massachusetts, who helped the USA men's team win the bronze medal yesterday and is something of a hero. I mean, they all are, because all of them contributed. But the special thing about Stephen is that he's a specialist and he is only there to do pommel horse, right? He was told he wasn't going to be an Olympic gymnast, but he was really good at pommel horse. And so he made pommel horse like his whole personality. And that was like his whole job, was to just come in and nail the pommel horse. I think that there are kids who think they have to be good at everything and that they have to have something in every category to put in their activities list, because especially their parents grew up in the 90s and or graduated from high school in the 90s, and we were told that you had to be a well-rounded student to get into college. And that's just not true anymore. Like, you can be a specialist, and college is really all kinds of people to their campuses. And so I love wonderfully nerdy pommel horse Steve, because I feel like he's such a good representative of how important a specialist is, that he doesn't have to do everything well. He does his thing really well. And who wouldn't want him on their Olympic team, right? So it's okay to be Steve, the pommel horse guy, and to come in and just do pommel horse. You don't have to have an art, a sport, volunteer work, a job, and a leadership role in your school. Like, you can be really, really into one thing, and that's fine. Just show that you really care about it, because how boring is it to have a campus full of people who can do everything or don't care about anything in particular? But how awesome is it to have a Steve who can do the pommel horse like so well that he nails it for the entire team? There you go. That's my very timely example. But yeah, you can put it in order and have the things you care about at the top, and it can be what you actually care about. And it doesn't have to make you look like you're Saint Teresa. You're good. It's okay. Whatever you love, you love. The other thing I want to point out, which I can't do in live time, but I can tell you it's there, is that once you have filled it out, you can hit the preview button, which is at the top right of the page, and it will show you how it's going to come up for your reader, your admissions reader. And it will show you like how everything is going to look, and you can actually print it if you want to and see it on paper and mess around with it and switch things around if you want to. So hopefully that is helpful. Because it's hard to switch back and forth between screens, I'm going to go ahead and do the honors section now. And then I promise I will come back and answer your questions. I can see that there are questions. I'm going to come back to them. I'm just going to finish up the honors section before I do it, because it's pretty short compared to activities. So, whoops. Here we go. So this is the honors section. The honors section it's under education on the Common App, which again, I can't pull up, but if I could pull up the Common App, under the education section on the left-hand side, honors is embedded within that section. They ask you, do you have any honors related to your academic achievements, beginning with the 9th grade or international equivalent? This section should mostly be for academic honors. However, it is okay if you have an honor that is very, very significant to you that you want to report. It's not like you're breaking a rule if you try and report it here. If there's something that you think that they should know about, just remember the application is about context, giving them information in context. If you think that it's helpful context or helpful information, then you can put it in here. They're not going to slap your wrist or say you're bad for putting something here that, isn't technically an academic achievement. Just make sure that it's meaningful and you want to include it and that it's adding to your application. So it does need to be in the 9th grade or higher. Getting the Girl Scout Gold Award in 8th grade would not go here. And actually, to be honest with you, I would put a Girl Scout award actually under Girl Scouts in an activity section anyway, even if you got it in high school. So what do we put here? First of all, don't feel badly if you don't have a million honors. They only give you 5 slots, and a lot of high schools don't give awards, and a lot of high school students don't have awards before senior year. We tend to give out a lot of awards to seniors and, sometimes juniors, but it's okay. I have a lot of students who are like, I don't even know what I'm going to put here, and it's totally fine. If you do have them, then you put them here. One of the things that I have students put here is National Honor Society. And I just want to point out National Honor Society is singular. The honor is singular. It's not Honors Society. It's just when you say it out loud, it runs together, so everyone thinks it's plural, but it's National Honor Society. If you are not an officer in National Honor Society, it can be in the honors section. It's a little bit redundant, and if you're not in National Honor Society, please don't freak out. I have a lot of parents who freak out about their kids not getting into National Honor Society. It's a little redundant because it's based on grades, and the school is going to know, the colleges are going to know what your grades are. And I realize there are other criteria that go into being chosen for National Honor Society, but at the end of the day, it's a little redundant. That being said, you can put it here. What I would put is like if it was my school, it would be LMP, National Honor Society. And that's because it is a school chapter and the schools choose who's in National Honor Society differently. You can also put Spanish Honor Society, French Honor Society, German Honor Society, English Honor Society, whatever it is. You can put those honor societies here. If you are an officer in the honor society, I suggest putting it in the activities section. But if you are just in the organization, you can put it here. Because if we're all being honest, you don't do a whole lot in that organization. A lot of times there's some peer tutoring that you do or some volunteer work, but it's mostly to stay in the organization. So yeah, something you can put here. Another thing that I have students put here is their AP awards. If they are designated as an AP Scholar with honor, an AP Scholar with distinction, that is in your College Board account. If you are an AP student and you have taken a certain number of tests and you've passed a certain number of tests, then you get an AP Scholar award. What that tells them is even for schools that don't look at AP scores for admissions purposes, seeing that you're an AP Scholar or an AP Scholar with honor or an AP Scholar with distinction tells them that you have passed a certain number of AP exams. So it's a little bit of intel they might not have had otherwise. And other things that we put here, other than, I mean, there are book awards that kids get at end of year award ceremonies. There are Scholastic Gold Key, the gold medal on the National Latin exam. You can put honor roll here. Again, it's redundant, but if you want to put something here and you don't have a lot of things to put there, you can put honor roll if you have it. And then if you are a National Merit semifinalist or commended scholar, you will probably find out sometime in September. You can add that in here before you submit your applications. Those are some examples, but I don't usually have kids put athletic awards or music awards, mostly because we can put those in the activities section under those activities. Same goes for things like debate or theater. If you have a long line of awards or things that you've won in one of those categories and you can't fit it into the activity section, you can use the additional information section in the writing section of the Common App and just give them a bullet point list. I wouldn't like write anything flowery or anything like that. Just say additional theater recognition or roles and roles in theater as well as recognition, and you can list it, or debate, individual debate awards, list it, that kind of thing. They get the point that you're very accomplished. Right underneath the honor itself. And by the way, when you list the honor, be as descriptive as possible. If it's Science Olympiad, like say what you won and what the title of your project was. You have a little bit of space to fit things in there. If it's an award that's specific to your school that isn't well known, like the Booker Award, describe what that is. The Booker Award for the most outstanding chemistry student in the 11th grade, like that kind of thing, because they might not know what the award is. You put here the year that you received it. And for things that happen over the summer, I usually say once we're done with 9th grade and we've graduated 9th grade, then it happens over the summer. It happened in 10th grade. And usually go that way. And if it's something like National Honor Society, when you were inducted in 10th grade, then 10th, 11th, 12th, as long as you're in it. The level of recognition for honor societies, I put school because they are school chapters. For, you usually know what state and regional is. And then for AP I usually put national or international. It doesn't really matter. They know what AP awards are. And for national merit, I put national. That helps. Okay, I'm going to answer some questions, and I have to take off the screen to do so, but I will go back to that screen if I need to in order to answer the questions. I just want to make sure that I can read everything while I do it. So let me pull up that screen again. Okay. How should this list be prioritized? I think I mentioned that. The same, by the way, the same priorities go for the honors as well as the activities. So for the honors, you want to put the things that are the most recent and the most significant to you at the top and go down from there. You just have 5 slots instead of 10. That matters. Is using list format fine? Yes. Yes. I'm not really sure where list format would be, but in the description box, you only have 150 characters. So you can list things for sure. Just make sure it's clear what you're listing. That makes sense. For the most selective schools with applicants who well exceed the 10 item limit on activities, do you suggest focusing on those items related to their intended area of study or those that show the greatest breadth of personal qualities or character? Okay, so in my experience, and I work with a lot of students, I don't see a lot of students who truly have 10 meaningful, significant activities that they have been able to spend a lot of time in. There are outliers. It is rare. And what I tell the kids is this is a highlight reel. This isn't every single thing you've ever done in your entire life for the past 4 years. This is a highlight reel for sure. And the kids will say, like, I don't really care about this. Like, I'm in Marine Club, but my friend founded it, so I just show up every once in a while. And we don't need to put Marine Club on there, if that's the way you feel about it. If you are like, save the turtles and that is your mission in life, like, absolutely Marine Club needs to go on there. But if you're, throwing your friend a bone by showing up at a meeting once every other month, like, you don't need to have it on your resume or your Common App activities list. All right. So if you have more than 10 activities and it is legit more than 10 activities, then what I would do is once you've culled out the things that are not as meaningful and you've got like 10 very meaningful things, and you have more, you can go to your additional information section under the writing section in the Common App and say additional activities and just go from there. But I would say keep it in the same general format, keep it concise, do not write a ton. Basically, you don't want to look like you're abusing the space and you're abusing their time. You want to make sure that what you're writing is meaningful. I also tell kids that if you do include things that are not that meaningful to you on your activities list, it sort of dilutes the rest of the list a little bit. Like, you want to make sure that every single thing on that list is a heavy hitter. Really, really matters to you. Because if you list things that don't matter to you, then they kind of wonder, like, how much do the other things matter to you? At least, I mean, I'll be honest, when I'm reading it, that's what I think. Like, okay, well, if we have things on here that you showed up for, every once in a while, then like, how much do you care about anything? So, okay. And the most selective schools, by the way, it does not have to be related to your intended area of study. I'm going to give you a secret here. A lot of the kids change their majors. And the most selective schools, like I went to Princeton, my kid went to Princeton, goes to Princeton. My kid went to Princeton as a philosophy major and changed his major to computer science in like 4 weeks. It happens a lot.
His thing expired in March?
Whoop. There's Lisa.
The one
Lisa.
I just gave? Oh.
Lisa.
Okay, sorry, I have both my earphones in. That's why I was asking. Okay.
Wait, Lisa, mute yourself. Hold on. I think I got her. Okay. Sorry. So, intended area of study. Yes. Hold on. Lisa, mute yourself. Yeah. So intended area of study is not necessarily how I would do it. I would do it as I would truly put in the things that they care about. So sorry for that distraction. And for the most selective schools, I mean, again, I think that it's still like what they care about the most, like the kids, like what they care about should be part of their narrative. So that's what I would focus on. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Oh, Lisa. Okay. National Charity League. I'm very familiar for mothers and daughters. I've heard not to list, but to talk about the philanthropy she's supported. It's totally fine to be an NCL. It's totally fine to do that. I don't believe in hiding things, honestly. Like that's just not in my nature. So I would say what I would do is, as if you've been an officer in NCL, then I think it's more effective. But I think that being part of NCL is fine. And I would focus on the philanthropies that you used and that you loved, and not necessarily the NCL part, unless you were an officer and had a leadership role. But it's you don't have to hide it. There's a coordinating organization for sons and mothers too. And, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's because I'm the mother of a son, but I think it's nice that you do stuff with your mother. Anyway, I wouldn't hide. I've never had my students hide NCL. It has not hurt them. So would you list being captain of a team separately for each year that you were captain, or an activity and say captain in 10th and 11th? I would put captain in the leadership role and position, and then in parentheses 10, 11. Somewhat different topic, but when listing classes, if you took a high school class in 8th grade that counts as a high school class, do you put in the middle school you took it at, or list it at the high school that it was counted for? So that's not something you do in the Common App. Unless you're talking about courses and grades. If you're talking about courses and grades, they have a section for middle school classes, but because those things are usually listed on your high school transcript, you don't list the middle school as a separate school unless it asks you to. But if it's on your high school transcript, then you just put the name of your high school. And that would only be in courses and grades, and that's only for very select schools. So most people are not filling out courses and grades. If an activity was done only in the summer between 10th and 11th grade, do you check off 10th grade or 11th grade participation for this activity? I would check off 11th grade because, like I said, once you're done with 10th grade, you're an 11th grader. And that's kind of the rule of thumb. So, and then you'd check off during school break for the time that you did it, the time of your participation. What is my advice for a student who doesn't think a particular activity is important, but their counselor is advising them to include it, an internship that helped them decide they didn't want to go pre-med? Oh, that's funny. If you have room to include it and it's something that that happened during high school and you have room to include it, I wouldn't put it first on my list. Like I'd put it somewhere appropriately in the list. But I'd actually put in the description what they did. And also I would include like helped me decide I don't want to go pre-med. Like that would be, and I wouldn't even need an internship to know that, but I actually would include that. I think that's interesting. And I think that, because it's being included and it's, I would assume, medical related, and the student is not applying as a pre-med or doesn't want to go pre-med, I think that it's kind of interesting to include it and say, this is when I decided I did not want to be a pre-med student. What about being chosen to be a Congressman's Youth Advisory Council under honors? If you have things that you want to list about what you did as Congressman's Youth Advisory Council, then that would go under activities. But if it's something that either the student hasn't done yet or knows what to put in that description, or if they have 10 activities and this is something extra and they can't fit it in there, then yeah, chosen to be part of Congressman Blankety Blank's Youth Advisory Council can go under honors, and it can be like a state level honor for sure. It's kind of about getting those things in there. If you don't have anything meaningful to put in the description, then you can put it under honors. Is it appropriate to list full IB diploma candidate under honors or an extended essay if it's recognized by the student's high school or IB? I would not do that just because it's going to be obvious that the student is a full IB diploma candidate from their transcript and from what they're doing in high school. So you don't need to put that under honors. It comes with the transcript and the classes that they're taking. What are other creative ways to use the additional information section, like summer internships? I'm not a huge fan of being creative about the additional information section. I see that as a necessary only section. And that's because what you have to remember is that readers read 100 apps a week, like outside readers that these universities hire will read at least 100 apps a week. They spend an average of about 6 minutes on an app, 6 to 10 minutes max. Actual committee members spend about that much time. And if you have put something in that additional information section, it better need to be there. Like they want to like you, they want to be your advocate, but you don't like give them something that doesn't mean anything in there. And it's not a place to like be cute. So if it's something necessary, if you are a debate champion and your debate resume is too long to put in the activity section, I'm a fan of bullet listing it in there. Same for theater kids, same for kids who did 8,000 million athletic contest things and need it all in there. Whatever it is that you need that to be your bullet point list, go for it. But bullet point it, keep it concise. They don't need to know every detail of all of it. They're not going to be poring over it and being like, ooh, that debate tournament. They don't care. They want to know your highlight reel. So keep it to your highlight reel. And do not, there are counselors out there who will tell you, just slip in an extra essay in there, like an extra writing sample. No. If they want it, they ask for it. And if they don't want it, they certainly don't want you putting it in there. So don't do that. If you need to add more context to something that you couldn't fit in the activity section, that it really does need context, you absolutely can put it in there. You just keep it short. You keep it short and sweet, and you do what you need to do, and you get in and you get out. You don't go on forever. You have 650 words in there. You do not need to use all of them. If something happened during high school that greatly affected your grades, if it's context they need to have. Some examples: long COVID, like long-term illness. Your parents got divorced your sophomore year and you failed math because you were able to keep it together in all your other classes, but math is just not where you could keep it together. And you were going back and forth between households, and it was a bad time. And since then you've picked it up, you got it back together again. You're okay. Like you're working on it. That is something you can document. My parents divorced fall of my sophomore year. Although I was able to keep my grades up in other areas, math was where I just couldn't do it. And I had a really bad year, and as you will see on my transcript. However, I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to bounce back from that. I've come back from it. You can see in my grades. I've done really well since then. If you've had, yes, so I can see that about ADHD. Yes, I've had students put in about ADHD. And you don't actually have to say medication if you don't want to. I'm not a huge fan of giving them like private medical information, but if you had a late diagnosis for ADHD and it's reflected in your grade trajectory, you absolutely can add that in. I'm very proud of the way I've performed since I was diagnosed and I was treated in whatever way you're treated. And I feel like I have a solid plan for success in college. I know what I need to do. It's good. Keep it short and sweet. If you had a mental health crisis in high school that greatly affected your grades, I'm not a big fan of putting that in the additional information section because I just feel like there's some things we don't owe them, but you can call it a medical event. I suffered a medical event spring of my sophomore year. After treatment, I was able to re-enroll, come back once I was healthy, and super proud of how I've done since then. I'm in good shape. That's all you need to know. A medical event can be a car accident, a concussion, a mental health crisis. There is no, mental health is physical health. There is no difference between them as far as I'm concerned. A lot of parents struggle with both concussions and mental health, like in terms of like how much grace to give a kid. And honestly, like we should treat every child as if they had been hit by a car. Like if you're having a mental health crisis, you are just as incapable of getting up and going to school the next morning as somebody who got hit. The end. And we need to get better. So you don't get better by pushing through it. And that's okay. But you need to document it as a medical event if you want to give context and if there are grades that you need to explain. I'm also not a big fan of telling them things if there's nothing that needs to be explained. If things happen, if you had ADHD but you had straight A's, you don't need to tell them that you have ADHD. Like that's okay. They don't need the context if there's nothing that needs context. So I think sometimes people think, well, but they did this and they have ADHD. You don't need to. It's not that there's no stigma, there's no shame in it. It's just they don't need that information. You have straight A's, like you're good. Okay. My son, like many students, spends a lot of time playing video games with his friends. Yes, I am also the mother of sons who play video games with their friends. He attends a private school where his friends live all over the county. Plus, we live on a road and not a neighborhood. Can you put video games as a hobby, especially since esports is getting more recognition? So yes, but you want to be very careful to describe it as a video game community member and to emphasize the community aspect of it, connecting with friends, building, like if he plays Minecraft with them, like building worlds and communities with them. Not so much first-person shooter games, like, but if you're going to list it and if it is truly something that is important to him, then I would just really, really emphasize the community aspect of it and just make sure that that's in there. I also wouldn't make it his number one activity. So if he can possibly like just tuck it in there, like number 3 or 4, that would be good. Is Eagle Scout listed under honors or activities? Usually if you're an Eagle Scout, then you're in Boy Scouts of America and you have other parts of that you want to describe too. And I would list Eagle Scout in the description of the Boy Scout activity, just like I would list Gold Award under Girl Scouts. So yeah. And I also like, if you're going to put Eagle Scout in the activity section description, I love hearing what the project was that they did. That's always a good thing. If you're going to play a spring sport in senior year, do you list a 12 by that sport, even though the season has not started yet at that time? Yes. Yeah. Because you're in it. And we're acting in good faith. If you then get injured and you don't play the sport, I mean, you're still intending to play the sport. And by that time, I mean, honestly, whether or not you play a spring sport, your senior year is not going to move a meter on college admissions. So it's not like they would rescind it. If you're like listing things in good faith, like you don't need to worry about it being something in the future. You're intending to be a part of that team. For sports, are varsity at school and club team outside of school 2 different things, same sport? Yes. So as long as you have room, you can list one as athletics club and the other as athletics JV varsity. They're 2 different categories on the Common App, and you can list both. My daughter is the leader of the Y group at school. I've heard we may not want to highlight her ADHD. Would sharing this leadership position possibly be a negative? I don't believe that having ADHD is negative, honestly. I mean, first of all, a lot of the people working at universities have ADHD, so it'd be pretty hypocritical. But I think that absolutely, I've had kids who were very, very involved with OCD, like national organizations, because they had OCD. Oh yeah, it's a neurodiversity group. That's fine. No, like having a leadership position in a group that specializes in neurodiversity, that's That's okay. There's no stigma to that. Neurodiversity is not, there's no shame or stigma. There's a lot of kids at college with neurodiversity factors, attributes. They're members of the club. Allison, just to confirm, music level 10 with honors for piano should be listed under activities and not honors. What is music level 10 with honors? Is that a class? Please clarify. Is there any benefit to applying directly to a college through the college's application over using Common App, or is it fine to use Common App instead if they take both? By law, when they join the Common App as a Common App university, they pledge to consider applications completely equally. And every single college representative I've ever spoken to has said it does not matter which application you use, that they will look at both equally. And they have to. It's the rules. So you can use either one. You don't need to do it. The only say just use the institutional app is if you are only applying to a handful of universities, like at the state level, and like here in Florida, our Florida state, we have 12 state universities, and some of them are holistic review, UF and FSU, and somewhat UCF, and FAMU, and then a bunch of them are not, like FAU, UNF, USF, FIU. If I was only applying to like FAU, USF, and FIU, I'd probably just use their institutional apps because I wouldn't need to fill out a Common App activity section because none of them consider it. I wouldn't need to fill out the honor section. None of them consider it. So those apps take like 15 minutes to fill out, and I'd probably just fill them out separately. But if you're applying to any school that considers activities and other elements in a holistic manner, it's probably in your best interest just to fill out the Common App, and then that is all. Okay, it's 9:05. I think we hit everything except for music level 10 with honors for piano. Maybe that's an award for piano, but I would put that under piano in your activity section if you can fit it. That's what I would do. Otherwise, you can put it in the honor section if you don't have room and you need to use it. That's not a bad thing. Okay, wait, I have one more Florida question. So I'm going to look at here. Not entirely related, but what do you know about Florida's tuition waiver for grandchildren of Florida residents? I know a lot. So that's the grandparent waiver. So we have a certain number of waivers that are given out every year to the 12 state universities. They don't all get the same number of waivers. It's based on kind of most. UF and FSU are probably going to get the most, and it's not a huge amount, but it's somewhere like in the 20s for UF and FSU. Basically, if you are at all interested in a grandparent waiver, it's in your best interest to apply early, like on the earlier side to the schools. Some of our state universities are like first come, first serve, like the first people who get admitted who need the grandparent waiver are going to be the ones who get it. Others are more selective about who they give it to, and it's more competitive. The kids don't have to do anything extra to get the grandparent waiver, but the universities are a little more selective about whom they give it to. But it always behooves you to have been on the earlier side of applying and getting your application in. So my advice for the grandparent waiver is that you get an application in on the early side. But it is not a ton of them. There's not a ton of them. And it's single digits for some of our state universities. It's in the teens for other ones. And sometimes at the end of the cycle, if they have extra ones, they will give extra ones to the state universities who need it. But for the rest of you, grandparent waiver is they waive out-of-state tuition fees. So you still have to pay in-state tuition, but our in-state tuition is incredibly low. I think the top in-state tuition for a Florida university is $6,700 a year for state residents, which is super low. So that is what they're talking about. Andy is talking about. And yeah, there's one more. Hold on. I got one more. For application deadlines of November 1st, is it better to get it in well before if that's possible? Actually, it doesn't matter. for most of them. For state universities, sometimes you should get it in before a priority deadline of November 1st because it might help you with housing. But for universities, like private universities with November 1st deadlines, like early action or early decision, before November 1st, they're not reading applications. They are out on the road, visiting high schools, recruiting, doing open houses. They are not reading applications, and it does not matter. Please, what all of the colleges would tell you is have your strongest application before you submit it. Do not feel like you need to get it in well before the deadline. Make sure it's your strongest application. That's what matters. So have your strongest application. I have another one. SSAR question, when do you fill it out? Do you receive a portal from the school after application? You can fill out the SSAR right now. It officially opens on August 1st. For the rest of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it is the self-reported student academic record, and the Florida universities use it, Penn State uses it, NYU uses it, Clemson, Tennessee, other universities use it, and you basically are taking your school transcript and you are entering it into a portal. It is separate from the Common App. It is separate from the application status portal you will receive from colleges. There's going to be a lot of portals in your life, but you can go Google SSAR on Google Chrome right now. It does not work on Safari, just so you know. And you can start an account and you can start entering in courses. You just can't link it to an application until after August 1st. So there you go. I think that's it. Oh, someone asked me how my rising senior has a college acceptance already. You should go back into our archives, and I'm sure Lisa Heffernan can help us with this, and you should look at my session on early wins and rolling admission schools that can give early wins. Took my own advice, made my child apply to a school that had an early deadline, and he has already heard from the lovely gem of a school, Brevard College in Brevard, North Carolina, at the mouth of the Pisgah Forest. And they actually gave him a $10,000 scholarship too. So even though he was like, why am I doing this? Like, am I going to go here? Like that kind of thing. Like, it is good to have options in an early win. And when he got the letter giving him a $10,000 scholarship, it was a huge boost of confidence for him. So that is how my child already has a college acceptance. There's also UNF Apply in July, which we also attended this past weekend. That's also in my session. So definitely news you can use, you guys. I take my own advice. So that is how we did that. Hopefully that will be helpful to some of you as well. I think we're all good. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And hopefully next time it will be a little less noisy and I won't have to wear headphones, and that will be exciting for all of us. I hope you all have a great evening, great week. For those of you starting school soon, good luck. And please, if you have any extra questions, put them in the group. I will go check the group tomorrow, and Lisa and Mary Dell let me know if there's anything anybody ever needs to know. I hope this is helpful. Good night.